The Town of Coventry Financial Town Meeting today, Tuesday, July 26th, 7 p.m. My name is Ben Marchant. I'm the town manager, and I'd ask everyone to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Emergency evacuation. You will proceed out the back doors, and you can go right or left to the exit. Our moderator, unfortunately, is taken ill and is unable to join us tonight. So our town solicitor has agreed at no charge to serve in that capacity this evening as moderator. And I'll introduce Nick Gorham.
All right. Well, it's 7 o'clock, so I think we can begin. The ground rules are really set forth in state law, which is actually incorporated in 818 of our charter. The main thing that I would stress is that everyone has the right to be heard. The law and the charter, the state law and the charter both say that all electors shall have the right to be heard on the subject of the vote or votes to be considered at an all-day referendum. So any questions at all that you want to ask or just sound off about, you have the right to do that. And I encourage everyone to take advantage of that. All the questions and statements will be directed through the moderator. No person shall be heard until recognized by the moderator. That's just to keep it orderly. Voting, of course, is Thursday, July 28th. The polls open at 7 a.m. There are 5 polling places. I think it's worth it to go through them because I know I always have a last minute panic. Is it still at the same church I've been going to vote for the last 20 years or whatever? So here they are. District 1 is St. Francis Church, 132 Peckham Lane. District 2 is the town council chambers right here. District 3 is Club Jokes, 184 Boston Street. District 4 is the Coventry Senior Center at 50 Wood Street. And District 5 is Westwood Estates Clubhouse. That's 1A Leanna Rose Way. I think we can just start by brief introductions by, would you like to say something, Ben, about the town budget? All right, would you like to speak as well after Ben?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have
The mic is on. So what I have for presentation tonight is just the updates that the town council made to the budget as the alternate fiscal year 2023 budget that you will have the privilege to vote on Thursday. Next slide. The budget was simply changed with a number of cuts and additions that resulted in a reduction of general fund expenditures to the town of $186,146 and a cut to the contingency fund of $150,000. The contingency fund is left with $230,000, which is quite a bit more than the $70,000 that was in the contingency fund in 2022 fiscal year. So the overall budget is $114,076,119. And the last slide just shows the pie chart distribution of town and school expenditures. That's it. So I'll be here for questions if anyone has any about the town budget.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate those coming in the audience, and obviously the school committee and the council. I know this seems like something we do unfortunately every year, but I think it's important to understand the budget and what the taxpayers are getting for their dollar. My presentation's a little bit longer. It's also on our website, coventryschools.net. It's on the homepage, and so you can look at our presentation. Next slide, please. So we always talk about, we want to start off positive with our successes. And again, this has been in our other presentation, but here's a list. Despite some of the challenges we face with COVID and with funding, these are some significant successes that we've had. We have, and I'm not going to read through all of them, but we have 5-star Bright Star Pre-K, which is the highest ranking. So it's important for families moving to Coventry to know. We have a National Unified Champion School, our high school, which is around inclusion. Only 5 schools in the world, not just the country, are identified every year. Coventry High School was identified. Our AP scores at the high school were 21% in average higher than those AP scores in Rhode Island, which is significant. And then some other important things is we've used our ESSER funds to offset local appropriations. We're using over $1 million to update our curriculum. We are using over approximately $1 million for security, cybersecurity, and for upgrading technology. And we're proud that we have strong partnerships with our community organizations, police, fire, municipal, DPW, rec, library. And that's something that we're very proud of. And you just have to look at our graduates to see, where they go to school, where they're working, to see our successes. And many of our, like I said, many of our population, our teachers, our support staff, over 51% are Coventry residents, and many are Coventry grads. Next slide. So the focus of our FY23 budget is spent to maintain level of services. We see what happens when we don't have the funding. We've had to put sports and activities and programs. We're not doing that. We're continuing to develop high quality curriculum. It's so important to help our students improve their performance and compete with the world. Where we understand what's happened with the pandemic about learning loss, the impact it's had on social, emotional, not only for students, for our adults, for families, and we're investing in that. We had a meeting last night. We're working with the council to address our capital needs. In this budget, the town manager put forward a significant amount of money to support the capital needs of the town and the schools. And we continue to expand opportunities. And you'll see we did receive additional state aid, but we're allocating that to safety needs. After Uvalde, Texas, we did surveys of all of our schools. We identified some weaknesses. And this budget allows us to address those weaknesses, and I'll talk about them a bit. The next slide. Revenue. So our budget is 2.86% increase over last year's. Our overall budget is a 2.13% increase. And I want to remind people of what's the inflation that we're dealing with right now. And you'll see how our budgets increase have compared to CPI over the last 13 years. Our tuition, our Medicaid, our revenues are constant. And we do not plan on using fund balance on this budget. We've had to use fund balance in the past. We understand that creates a structural deficit. We don't want to do that in this budget. We're not using fund balance. Our expenditures. So last year, our healthcare, and we know, years ago when I started teaching, healthcare was free. You didn't pay for it. We understand the impact that benefits have on budgets. Last year, our healthcare was constant. We didn't have an increase and that's because of our usage. This year, we have a 5% increase in medical and a 3% increase in our dental. So I think that's, with inflation, we're doing very well. We reduced our equipment line. The town had mentioned, and the town cut funds for an alternate budget. I want to identify how we've used our funds to reduce our budget. We used ESSER funds, which is the COVID funds. We used $214,000 to offset this in this budget, Chromebooks. We locked in energy for 3 years. We went out to bid. We locked in. We have a minimal savings of $200,000 over the next 3 years. And that was prior to the prediction of the maybe electric doubling or tripling. So we'll have increased savings. Again, we talk about using the American Recovery for curriculum materials. We actually, the other night, went to the council. They approved us using our ESSER funds to purchase minivans. We have to pay for transportation for students out of district, students that are foster children, maybe live in another community, come to Coventry. We are going to be purchasing 4 vans that'll, at a cost of $200,000 using our federal money. That'll save us at a minimum, we figure, about $200,000 a year moving forward. So these are some of the measures we've done to reduce costs. I talk here about the safety, that we did that survey. We've identified some safety needs. We have outside doors that need to be replaced in many of our buildings. We have surveillance systems. We do not have cameras in our elementary schools. When we met with the police and they went through our schools, number one item was we need to put in surveillance systems. This budget allows us to purchase those systems. And I talk here about the school committee approved the use of $904,788 for school safety repairs and upgrades on June 23rd. So that's in this budget as long as the budget passes. The next slide is just the CPI index. It just shows over the last 13 years, our increase has averaged 1.45%. The CPI percent change has been 2.880%. This is, I think, the next slide is important to understand. There's a thing called per pupil expenditure. It's when you look at all the money spent on education, it's how much is spent in a community. So there are 34, I believe, cities and towns in Rhode Island. 39? All right, I'm off by 5. 39 cities and towns in Rhode Island. The rest of these we're 47th out of 63. Those are public charter schools that are identified. So if you look at our per pupil expenditure is 47th out of 63, and yet our performance, and we know we can do better, but our performance at our high school is 22nd. And we know that by increasing the number of students that take AP classes, which is something we've talked about, we need to increase our number. That's going to bring our number down significantly if we can double the number of students. So I want to, for the money that we have, we're doing very well. We don't use this as an excuse, but I think it's important for this community to understand. Next slide is about budget reduction. So we had 12 retirees this year, and depending on how we replace them, it'll be a savings of $216,000 to $372,000. We eliminated a couple of floating nurses that we put on due to the pandemic. We eliminated them from our operating budget, savings of $165,865. I talked about the energy, the contract that we locked in this is a low estimate. It'll probably be much higher, the $200,000 a year savings. When we had a meeting with the council, and I think we were looking for 3.75 or 3.76%. And the council president asked both the town manager and myself to go back and look at what we could do in reductions. And Mr. Sands worked with our bus company, Ocean State, to help negotiate a savings of $200,000 just in transportation. We transport Pontiac students. So that one negotiation saved us $200,000 in this budget. And again, I think it's important. How are we using our federal funds? We've done this. This has all been public at school committee meetings. We've used $1.4 million for teachers and support to help students coming back from the pandemic. We've used $1.2 million, or we will use $1.2 million, the school committee approved over 5 years, to improve our curriculum. We've already seen that make a difference. We have a curriculum EL that is in our elementary school. And over 1 year, we've closed those learning gaps because of that curriculum, the resources we provide our teachers, and the professional development. I mentioned the $1 million for software and hardware tech, including cybersecurity. And then there's a requirement. The schools have to spend 3% of their operating budget on maintenance of facilities. And the town has helped us with that in terms of allocating dollars towards that maintenance requirement. The school committee allocated $400,000 towards that from our ESSER funds. We also meet that requirement, and I'll talk a little bit about that with our tradespeople. Their salaries count towards that, and that's about $600,000 and some $1,000. Next slide. So working to improve the budget. Budgeting is not just once a year. Budgeting is every single day. When you have, a district or municipality, we focus on the budget every day. So our contracts are all set going into next year. This coming year, we have one more year on our contracts. We'll start negotiating somewhere after January. We review all of our staffing and course loads to see if we're overstaffed, understaffed. We've made reductions this year in some of our elementary programs based on numbers. So we do this ongoing. And that was one of the recommendations from the performance audit. And we look at all of our software, curriculum, our equipment costs, and to see how we can use our ESSA funds to enhance our educational objectives. Right? I think we've done an excellent job of using our ESSA funds strategically to offset what the taxpayers would have to fund, but also to keep that laser beam focus on improving student performance. The next slide is just our capital list, our priority list, and that may change based on some of the safety, but you'll see we had a total of $1.4 million. And again, this is kind of fluid. We just had a meeting on our roof at the middle school that I'll need to present on the school committee that we're going to need to take some type of action on. The last slide is the maintenance requirement. It just talks about what the 3% of operating expenditures is, the $2 million. Trade salaries equal $700,000. We have $285,000 budgeted for building repairs and maintenance. The town has allocated $878,583. And I think what's significant, I think Mr. Marchant, it was in presentation, the last 12 years, the only amount of money that's been allocated for capital in this entire community, I believe, was $200,000. So what's being allocated this year on our buildings? As you go into any of the buildings, they're falling apart, right, in layman's terms. So this committee, this council, the town manager, they've made a commitment to focus on our capital maintenance within the entire community. So again, that's the presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions also and make a mess.
I had to move the mic down. So this is the part where you have the right to be heard. If you want to ask any questions, first I want to thank Superintendent Levis and Town Manager Marchant for their presentations, but this is the point where the rubber meets the road. If you have any questions or you just want to sound off about something you like, maybe something you don't like, this is your opportunity as a taxpayer and an elector of Coventry. You'll be voting on these budgets hopefully on Thursday. So just raise your hand and we can begin the right to be heard. This appears to be identical to the last financial. Okay, very good. Would you like to stand up and speak? Sure.
Thank you very much. What's your name and address?
It's Kim Sturtle, 20 Catopla Way. Kim Sturtle, 20 Catopla Way. I just have one quick question. It's going back to that budget. I'm also the SRP secretary. I just want to make sure that the contingency that is put forth of the 200,000, I believe it was, does not include anything to do with our pension payment. Is that true?
That is true.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure because we've been working hard trying to get that back up. Thank you.
That's one more question than we had last time. So congratulations. Is there anyone else who wants to ask a question or speak up a little bit? I'll wait a few more seconds. Oh, all right.
Is there anyone online that would like to make a comment? Please raise your hand.
Would you like to speak, Don? Would you like to come down and speak? I think that.
Do I have to come down there?
Well, you're
Her
right next to the
microphone.
court reporter. so
Her microphone should work.
Yeah.
I'm good right now.
Okay. Donna Kalunian, 607 Black Rock Road. And I'm a school committee member. I just want to make a statement that I don't think anybody realized, but we're not paying car taxes this year. So even with this small increase in property taxes, we probably will end up coming out, on top as taxpayers. So I just wanted to make that statement to let everybody know that, we are, there is some savings there.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, if there are no other questions or people who just want to stand up and give their opinion about the budgets, then I think the next motion would be one to adjourn, if I'm not mistaken. I can't think of any other business. Does anybody else on the council or the school committee want an opportunity to? All right.
No, we appreciate everyone coming tonight. If you came to the last one as well, then fantastic. And hopefully we get a good turnout on Thursday to vote for the budget. We'd really appreciate it if everyone who's on right now got the word out.
With that, Mr. Moderator, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Right.
I'll second it.
You know, I'm not sure who votes to adjourn.
We don't really have to. Just say goodbye.
I think
You just
it's
say
my
goodbye.
call. I was hoping someone else would make the call, but I think it is my call.
It is.
So I'm going to declare the meeting adjourned, and I too would like to just say thanks to everyone for coming and get out and vote on Thursday, I guess. Good luck.